Rex Nutting of MarketWatch is joining us in Washington, D.C. with a piece he has on baby boomers. Baby boomers, he claims, have to work, and they're taking jobs from the young people out there. I'm a bit skeptical. Rex, did I sense a sentimental or sympathetic tone from you when it comes to the baby boomers?
Well, I'm always sympathetic to everyone, especially my own.
He's breaking up. Rex, why don't you pick up the phone there?
Yeah.
Because you're breaking up.
I'm sorry, Evan, what was that question?
Yeah, I'm saying you're sympathetic to the baby boomers. Is that because you're a baby boomer yourself?
Well, I'm sympathetic to most people, but I'm especially sympathetic to my own group.
Right. Now, you put in your piece today, you threw around a lot of numbers, and certainly the numbers when it comes to the Bureau of Labor Statistics can be very, very confusing.
Right.
But the upshot is that a lot more, let's call it, elderly or older Americans, let's call it people over the age of 55, have been finding work over the last year or so compared to people under the age of 25. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right. You know, about 66% of the job growth has gone to people over 55. That's a huge number. Right.
Now, you interpret that, your interpretation was, oh, look, they are taking jobs because they have to. They have not been provided for, or they've not made their own provisions for retirement, and you couple that with falling stock prices and falling home prices, and the baby boomers are in a difficult pickle. Did I also get that more or less right?
Well, I think that's true, but there's also a longer-term trend, which is people are healthier longer in their lives, especially people who work white-collar jobs. So they're able to work longer, and a lot of them like their jobs. And so I think there's a sort of a trend for people to work longer into their retirement years. But then there's also this other aspect of the wealth that was destroyed during the Great Recession. Using some data from some Chicago Fed researchers who suggested that the labor force participation rate is much higher for older people because of the wealth they lost.
Now, I want to kind of take those two aspects of your argument separately, Rex. And I can certainly agree with the first one. Both of my parents are in their early 70s. They both are still working, have always worked. They like to work. I'm very happy they're working. And so I could see that trend playing out in the, let's call it the jobs marketplace, where older Americans are healthier and better shape than they've always been. And frankly, what are you going to do unless you really like, sitting around the shuffleboard court? Maybe you should be working. So I don't dispute that. The second element, I had a little bit of a problem with, because I think baby boomers have had a pretty good deal over the last 30 or 40 years.
Well, some of them have. There's a certain group, I think, that inherited money from their parents who did well in the 50s and 60s. But I think there's a lot of people in that age group who are really on the edge. They don't have very much saved up for retirement. They don't have defined benefit contributions. Their 401k has been flatlined for the last 10 years or so. And I think that there's a large group of people who really do need to work if they can work. And some people are being forced onto disability or to unemployment insurance because I think older people do face some discrimination in the workforce as well.
But if you look at what the baby boomer generation has received, both in terms of investment returns from the stock market, I mean, the baby boomers probably experienced one of the great bull markets of all time from early 1980 through up until, probably you could say 2000 or more recently to 2008. So the baby boomers have benefited from a huge pickup in real estate prices, a huge bull market. Again, I'm stretching out over the 30 or 40 years, and many of them, especially those of them who worked in the civil service for state or local governments, they are benefiting from very rich defined benefit packages. Compared to other generations, either the generation before the baby boomers or the generations after the baby boomers have gotten as good as they're going to get.
Well, I think that might be true. Although I think the baby boomers were lulled into maybe a false sense of security by the bull market in stocks in the 90s, and maybe they didn't save enough for the retirement. Since then, their wealth really has gone, nowhere. And they were expecting huge returns every year. The people were expecting their house basically to fund their retirement. And the sad reality is that nobody's going to be able to fund their retirement by selling their house.
Right.
So I think that you're right. People have done well in that generation, and I fear for the generations coming after, who are not receiving the same kind of boost in their wealth from the markets, and who have a harder time finding a job, especially in this tough recession.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that one, Rex. And I not to pick on the baby boomers, but I think in terms of the legacies, history will look at them as not being particularly generous in terms of saddling future generations with the $15 or $16 trillion in national debt that is currently being used to pay for Medicare and a lot of other government programs that are basically wealth benefits to the older generations. But that's one of my pet peeves that I get into fights with my parents with all the time. We're going to have to leave that to another show, Rex. Thank you very much from Washington. Have a great weekend, Rex.